you'll never be free." Those were the words I found scrawled in lipstick on my bathroom mirror, the morning after I learned the truth about Sarah. It was the final, chilling piece of a puzzle I never wanted to put together. It all started with a betrayal. My ex-girlfriend, Sarah, had cheated on me, and the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. We had been together for only a few months, but it felt like we were building something real, something lasting. But in one night, that illusion was shattered. She slept with another guy while I lay just a few feet away, passed out from too much alcohol at a party she hosted. The image of her in his arms in the next room, while I lay unaware, haunted me. But let's go back to where it all began. I met Sarah while working a seasonal job in a small, picturesque town. I was 28, feeling like life was slipping away from me, and Sarah was 20, full of life and energy. She had a way of making me feel like the world was at our feet, and for a while, I believed it. Our connection was instant. From the moment we met, it was like we had known each other forever. We spent every free moment together, exploring the town, laughing, talking about our hopes and dreams. She made me feel like I was the most important person in her world. After just a week, we made things official. It seemed fast, but I couldn't help it. I was falling for her, and she seemed to feel the same way. She would often tell me how much I inspired her. "You've changed my life," she'd say, her eyes full of admiration. She even met my parents, which was a big deal for me. And then she started talking about marriage. "Do you want to marry me?" she'd ask, half jokingly, but with a glint in her eye that made me wonder if she was serious. We exchanged "I love yous" more times than I could count. I was sure I had found the one. Then came the night of the party. It was a casual gathering at her place, just some friends, drinks, and music. I remember feeling good, like everything was finally falling into place. Maybe I had one drink too many, or maybe I just needed to let go for a night. Either way, I ended up passing out on her bed, completely unaware of what was happening around me. While I slept, Sarah left the room. What I didn't know then, what I found out later, was that she had cheated on me that night. She was with another guy, right there in her roommate's bedroom. They were only a few feet away, and I had no idea. She came back to bed afterward, lying down next to me as if nothing had happened. We woke up together the next morning, and she acted like everything was perfectly normal. But things weren't normal. I noticed a change in her almost immediately. It was subtle at first, a slight distance in her eyes, a coolness in her touch. By Wednesday, just a couple of days later, she told me to sleep alone. It felt like a punch to the gut. When I asked her what was wrong, she said I was too emotional, too attached. Then she broke up with me, just like that. The next day at work, I was a wreck. I couldn't stop thinking about her, about everything that had happened. I tried to hold it together, but inside, I was falling apart. I asked her why she had really left me, but her answer was cold and emotionless. She said she had changed her mind, without a hint of remorse. I found out the truth later that day, from a mutual friend. Sarah had been spending time with the guy she cheated with, and they had even gone on a trip to Geneva together. They were sending pictures to our group chat, smiling and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Seeing those photos was like a knife to the heart. I couldn't let it go. I messaged the group chat, telling everyone we needed to talk. I wasn't going to let Sarah walk away from this without at least facing me. When they returned, the guy showed no empathy, and Sarah tried to avoid me. I insisted on talking to her, and when she finally came downstairs, she tried to brush it all off like it was no big deal. She didn't apologize until I practically forced her to. But by then, the damage was done. I was heartbroken, but I knew I had to move on. That's when the strange things started happening. It began with small, unsettling occurrences around my apartment, odd noises at night, doors that I was sure I had closed being found open, and a creeping sense of unease that I couldn't shake. At first, I chalked it up to stress. After all, I'd been through a lot, and maybe my mind was just playing tricks on me. But then, one morning, I found those words on the mirror. "You'll never be free." The message was written in bright red lipstick, the letters smeared and jagged, as if they'd been hastily scrawled in a fit of anger. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the words, trying to make sense of them. Who had done this? Was it some kind of sick joke? I wiped the mirror clean, hoping that would be the end of it. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Over the next few days, things only got worse. I started receiving anonymous text messages, cryptic, threatening messages that seemed to know details about my life that I hadn't shared with anyone. "How's your new life without her?" one message read. Another said, "You think you can escape what's coming?" The paranoia began to consume me. I felt like I was being watched, no matter where I went. Every time I stepped outside, I could feel eyes on me, lurking in the shadows, just out of sight. I started seeing things, dark figures moving in the corners of my vision, disappearing the moment I turned to look. One night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I stayed up late, determined to catch whoever was behind all of this. I sat in my living room, every light in the house turned on, my heart pounding with anticipation. Hours passed, and just as I was about to give up, I heard a faint knock at the front door. I got up slowly, my pulse racing. I walked to the door and opened it, expecting to find someone there. But there was nothing, just the cold, empty night. As I stood there, trying to calm my nerves, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A shadow, quick and fleeting, darting around the corner of the house. I ran outside, but when I reached the spot, there was no one there. I didn't sleep at all that night. The fear was too much, too real. The next morning, I packed my things and left, determined to get as far away from that place as possible. I drove for hours, not knowing where I was going, just trying to outrun whatever was haunting me. I eventually found myself in a small, quiet town, far from where I had been living. I checked into a cheap motel and tried to calm down, but the fear lingered. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the window, sent me into a panic. I kept the lights on at all times, too afraid to let the darkness in. Days turned into weeks, and I stayed in that motel, hiding from whatever was out there. The messages stopped, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe it was over. But deep down, I knew better. I knew that whatever it wasn't finished with me. One night, as I lay in bed, trying to force myself to sleep, I heard a faint tapping at the window. My heart leaped into my throat. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, until I couldn't ignore it any longer. I got up, my hands trembling, and approached the window. I pulled back the curtain, and there, standing just outside, was a shadowy figure. I stumbled back in terror, but when I looked again, the figure was gone. I rushed to the door, threw it open, and ran outside. But the night was empty just like before. I returned to the room, locking the door behind me, my mind racing with fear. I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. I had to keep moving, had to stay one step ahead of whatever was after me. I packed my bags and left the motel, driving aimlessly through the night. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. But no matter how far I drove, I couldn't escape the feeling that something was following me, lurking just out of sight. As the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, I finally pulled over, exhausted and desperate. I sat in the car, staring at the empty road ahead, trying to catch my breath. And then, just as I was starting to calm down, my phone buzzed with a new message. "Running won't save you." I dropped the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew then that there was no escaping this. Whatever it was going to find me. And when it did, I wasn't sure I'd be able to survive it. I don't know what Sarah unleashed that night, or if it was even her doing. All I know is that I'm trapped in a nightmare I can't wake up from, haunted by something I can't see or understand. And no matter how far I run, I'll never be free.